Hi, I'm Anel Flores. I am the author of Empanada, a lesbiana story en probaditas, an artist, a fiction writer. I am really happy to be here. I'm from South Texas. I'm from Nepantla, the space between San Antonio and Brownsville, where I was born. I am my ancestors, and I am the spirit, and I'm very happy to be here.
Will you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a writer and the place that writing plays in your life?
For the sake of throwing in a cliche and also giving some props to all of our ancestors, I know stories that are dug deeper than my lifetime on earth, right? Stories that are in my body, stories that are in my blood, stories that are in my mother's experience that I feel reverberating in my bones. Writing for me is like being able to also understand people, events, traumas, and celebrations. Understanding these people, understanding these events in ways that you could really not understand just by talking to somebody, maybe. I feel like for me, writing gets you under the story. It gets me under the story. And it helps me to understand the world around me and even be forgiving, be loving, be in the present, to understand people that hurt me. That's for my own personal self, right? But then writing becomes something else. It becomes a moment where I'm, putting it down, excited about it sometimes, sad about it, others mad about it. And then it becomes somebody else's journey, somebody else's experience, somebody else's opportunity to see deeper than they could have seen before they saw themselves in the pages of a book. And I know that from folks who tell me when they read my work, and also from what I've read, from when I read other authors. I feel like I'm able to really uncover things that I didn't know were there until someone else was able to show me. It's just so important. It's so important to me and the world. I could go on about that forever.
So, Anel, you've been working in various genres over the years. I've followed your work. You're a visual artist, a poet, a playwright, a fiction writer. You write essays as well. You write all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And I am super interested in having you talk with us a little bit about your movement from one genre to another. Is that about the long kind of journey of your life through writing and art, or is it more about the story that needs to be told, like thinking about Empanada and the various genres that work is moving through and the various forms it's taken, and then also your novel that's in process and your graphic novel? Will you talk to us a little bit about genre and the various media that you work in?
I've always broken genre, I guess, intentionally, or I never allowed myself to get stuck into one. Even from when I was a kid, playing outside, everyone's like, oh, this is how you play. This is how you ride a bike. I'm like, no, you can also ride a bike like this. You can also ride it backwards. You can also do this. You can also stand here and stand there. Or this is how you skate. No, you can also skate like this, or this is how you swim. No, you know what? I swim like this. So in life, it's been like that. In grad school, in undergrad, of course, I read Ansaldúa. Like many, we should all, if you haven't yet. And I try all the time, or my brain makes me want to try to fit into a genre or try to get in there. Or why doesn't it look like this? Why doesn't it feel like this? But no matter how many times I've been challenged, my art teachers, for example, I had an art teacher say, you need to pick one style, because that way everybody can see your art and everybody around the world will know that's an Anel piece. I have probably 20 styles in 20 years, and people can all still recognize my piece and my work. So I'm fine with that. I can knock that professor's info out of my head, even though, it stayed, but I continue to challenge that movement. And then in grad school for writing, I had two advisors. One of them was a fiction writer. One of them was a poet. They gave me two advisors because I went in as multi-genre. And those two advisors that first semester, they were just like, you need to write poetry. It needs to be poetry. It needs to be poetry. It needs to be poetry. My other advisor was like, needs to be fiction. Needs to be fiction. Needs to be fiction. I was like, hey, guess what? I'm not doing what either of y'all say. And I even, shaped I shaped grad school in the way that I was able to have my poetry advisor for semester 1, the fiction advisor for semester 2. And then I went back to poetry semester 3. Semester 4, I had both advisors. I requested that because that's where I completed Empanada. And that work is prose. It's short vignettes. It's definitely poetic. Each piece can live alone and each piece lives together as a whole. So people can call it a novel, people can call it a collection. And also Empanada is a play. So there's that. The play actually is coming out February 25th. It'll be featured and opened by the San Antonio Public Theater. And, you know, when those things happen, when the play happened, it was because it's what I had at the moment and what I knew was going to reach a different audience and another audience and make things accessible. When I was introduced to writing, I was immediately drawn in and immediately felt like I belonged somewhere for the first time ever, you know, but it took 18 years for somebody to give me the right book. And that's because my teacher at that time gave me book after book after book, gave me Anel I, gave me, I mean, so many wonderful authors. I could name them all. Annie Dillard, authors I love. But back then, you know, when you're 19 and you're reading Annie Dillard, you're like, what is happening? Right. As an adult, I can do it. But when I was 19, they gave me Sandra Cisneros and I was like, wow, I belong somewhere. But it took forever. I couldn't find that book myself. There's no way I could have gone to the library back then and done that. So when I wrote the play, I was thinking with that in mind. Like, I want to get to an audience that isn't going to go to the library or can't Google or can't search or doesn't, you know, all that. I want to get to this audience that goes to see something live. So I wrote the play. So that was one way of using genre. Then I wanted to tease that play out and really pull it and push it and open it as much as possible so that now with my audience, which is I write for LGBTQIA folks specifically, POC folks specifically, with the also knowing that everyone will read it and it will also relate to everybody. But I'm writing for an audience that doesn't have a voice, right? Or doesn't have as much real estate, if you will, in literature. Then when I wrote all the collection of Empanada, I continued to stretch out that genre. And now in fiction, writing my current novel, Cortinas de Lluvia, that I'm finishing up right now with my editor, I just was like, there's a lot more things I want to say. So I'm going to just push it and push it and push it and take all the advice of all my teachers and see how far I can go. Not how far I can go, like I'm going to write thousands of words, how far the story can go. How far can the story live? I'd never said I have to write 300 pages or I have to write a novel or I have to write a collection. I just wrote and wrote and wrote like all the best teachers that I've had, Sharon Bridgeforth and Sandra and you, Dr. Cuevas, and so many other folks that have taught me and told me to push and push and push. So I'm doing that. And so Cortinas has become this long journey and has transformed, and breaking genres gives me that opportunity. With my graphic novel now, or my graphic memoir, actually, it's giving me an opportunity. I feel like, you know, I'm 44. After 40, I was like, I'm doing whatever I want. But now that I'm 44, I'm really doing whatever I want. Let me say, I'm going to just maneuver the genre, move it around. I'm working genre out. I'm teasing it out. And I'm bringing my two favorite things to do to tell that story together, the drawing and the writing, with the intention of also thinking always of audience. You know, when I started to draw this memoir, when I started to do some of those panels, I have 8 panels total, and I've exhibited about 5 of them, I think, or 6 different galleries. And the young people, I mean, they hunch into the work. They hunch into the drawing. They look so close. They read every sentence. They read every word. They hold their hands. They cry. When they see the drawing, you know. And for me, what another reason to push me harder, because maybe, yes, writing when it starts is for me so that I can get under the story. But when it lives out there in the world, oh my God, it's so exhilarating. It's exhilarating when a kid or young person or an adult, an elder says, I saw myself there, you know? And then you remember that first time you felt and you saw yourself and you say, yeah. And not only that, but you're a little queer kid and you see yourself in that book. So for me, it's like, I will wake up in the morning and I will write that story so that at least one kid, one person, one adult, or at whatever stage in life they are, they will see themselves in that piece of literature. And writing for me in words and images and art, I mean, it's what we base all of our history on. It's what we base our medicine on and our future. So I'm going to keep doing it and breaking genre. So.
Will you tell us about what each of those 2 projects is about?
So Cortinas de Lluvia started with me wanting to tell the story of the community in Mission, Texas, that was suffering from the haze salmon's pollution that was emitted into the community in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It was a huge ordeal. There was a lawsuit, and my family was part of it in real time, in real life. And so my goal was to hone in on mission and look at how the folks have been affected, especially the women. As I was exploring genre, right, and as I was teasing out the story and working with other writers, readers, my peers, to look at the story, I was able to discover that this novel, Cortinas de Lluvia, is really about queer family. It is about a young queer woman who leaves Mission, Texas, by force of her parents, not accepting her as an out queer person, and she leaves her mission to San Antonio. And the novel is about the queer family that she develops in San Antonio and what that looks like, and what are the traumas and the trials and the celebrations in building a queer family that you choose, and then returning home to join families together. So it's about queer family and family and growing in family. The graphic memoir is titled Pintada de Rojo. That is a working title. Pintada de Rojo is going to be about my own journey in learning how to love when I spent maybe 30 years of my life not really wholly loving myself and not being capable of loving others because of that in a whole way. My graphic memoir is going to tell the stories of how love was uncovered to me in my childhood and how love was also taken from me in some traumas that I experienced, and how I was able to come out on the other side of that and really, really love and fall in love with myself, my family, my peers, my friends, the earth, the spirit, the universe, and everything. So it's a memoir about queer love and how we get there.
So would you say that the graphic memoir is a story of healing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel really grateful that my parents, as much as there's been hard times as a queer out person with my parents, they love each other so much. So as I got older and I was able to really move away from our conflicts and just see them as lovers, and then say, wow, like I am capable of that kind of love as a queer person. So am I healing while I write it? Yes. Am I healing from sadness? And that's why it's about love, because these tears are really about celebration for me. I feel so happy to know these tears are happy and loving, and they're just like covered in joy. So yeah, it's definitely about healing, but it's really also just about the tremendous joy that you can feel if you love yourself. And to love yourself as a queer person on a daily, when the world doesn't love you, right? When the rhetoric is not loving, that's hard. So maybe I do need to heal from some of that every day, but I know how to do it now, I've been practicing. And I have a lot of great peers. So I practice that, even though it's a constant. So yeah, I'll be healing. It is about healing, but really mostly about celebrating how love is so much more dynamic when you're queer also, because you're like, I'm going to love you no matter what. And that's what I want. I want to be able to use that wonderful privilege that I have.
One of the things that we're thinking about in this podcast is, we're inviting Latinx, Latina writers to talk about their writing and what they're working on these days, and to talk to us about social justice and how and whether they see their writing in service of social justice or to the community, or however you interpret that. And for some writers that might be maybe more direct, kind of like they're writing a manifesto or something, or do protest literature, protest poetry or something. For others, it might be more convoluted or something, or in service of the community. So I was just wondering if you might think about what that means to you. Like, do you see your writing in relation to social justice in some way? And if so, how?
My writing absolutely is connected to social justice on a daily, every day. I live and breathe it, I think. I feel like we talk about this, you and I have talked about it before with Sharon, having Sharon Bridgeforth as a teacher. And she did say the words, and I just actually spoke to her a couple of days ago, and she repeated again, it is our responsibility. As much as that is a lot of pressure, I do feel that, and not even because Sharon said it only, but because, like I talked about my parents, wow, geez, to get into what they had to experience, right? What they went through, fighting for their language, for the Spanish language, fighting to just have books, in their classroom, to have paper, to have food, water, air, to breathe, to have any freedoms. For me, that activism lives in my body, to do it for them, and then to do it for me, to do it for my young kids, for my children who are both queer and out. To be an activist as a writer becomes naturally, because I'm like, what can I do? What do I need to tell somebody so that they can not be so mean to queer people, But what can I do? What can I write so that I can show the world that LGBT folks, queer folks, gender non-binary folks, POC folks, Black and brown folks, that we are humans, that we are loving, we are lovable, we are deserving. So my stories are, when I write, I come from that place that the writing is the activism. The writing is the statement. The writing is the protest. The writing is the movement. The fighting for my writing to be on shelves. The fighting for my writing to be in classrooms. The fighting for me to remind my friends, to tell others, to give one queer book to their queer cousin. That's the activism, right? To be coming out constantly is the activism. To be reading the work in front of audiences is the activism. To have the blog posts that you're doing right now, to do this video is activism. My writing is about that. It's about creating more stories, making space for LGBTQIA voices as much as I can, and providing spaces for them in my extracurricular activity and my programs that I want to start, in the readings that I host, the writings I do. Absolutely, my writing is activism.
How about your visual art and how you see that, and also possibly how you see your visual art in relation to your writing beyond the graphic memoir, but just in general, how you approach those different mediums?
So, my art came first, the visual art, the drawing, the sketching early, like, 15, 16, when I was painting and drawing, I was drawing bodies that were like without gender. They were just bodies, and they were kind of like on top of each other, or the silhouettes were shaped in certain ways, very abstract at the time. And then as I started to come out little by little, come out of the closet, come out as a, Chicana, knowing who I am, getting more identified with my body and myself, my visual art became a little more, you could see the body, maybe you could see that it was a woman, two women sometimes. And then I had a writing teacher wanted me to start writing. Well, I didn't take the class. Someone put me in the class because I was in trouble. That's a true story. She was the dean of academics and she had me in her creative writing class. So I started writing, and she was the teacher who gave me Annie Dillard and Naomi Nye and everyone you could imagine. And then finally gave me Cisneros. And so when I read Cisneros and I started writing in this style that I was inspired by, and then I started to see that my writing was really what I was painting, except in the page, I was given it was a little safer, right? I could close the page. I could close the journal. This is 18, 19 years old. And then my writing really started to feed my drawing. So I started to become more brave. I started to loosen the silhouette, or like open up the bodies, or even have women kiss, or even, just dive deeper into the graphic that was my artwork, and then dive deeper into my writing. So all of these years, for 25 years, I dive into my drawing. And sometimes, there are drawings no one will ever see. There are drawings I never will see again because I throw them away. But those drawings then become writing. And some of them become exhibited. Some of them now will go together. So they definitely feed each other. They both make me braver on the other end. When I write, I see images that I didn't see when I was drawing. And when I paint, I see and develop ideas that I didn't see. When I'm painting them, the ideas come and then I put them on the paper. So they definitely work together. And I never want to stop, around me, like even on my residency, when I'm stuck, I just start watercoloring, and then some badass image comes out. So that's where I'm at on that.
That's great. I'm so glad you got punished with a writing class, because now I'm grateful we get to benefit from your writing.
Yes, I am.
But writing was a punishment.
Yeah, I am too. Absolutely.
So which Cisneros was that? House on Mango Street?
Yeah, Mango Street. That's what was given to me then. That was that first book. I mean, I swear that was the first book I ever finished in my whole life. I'm not even kidding. That is not even a lie. And I'm coming out of the closet with that because I was not a good student prior to that moment. But once I read that book, I was like, wow, if I would have been reading these books all my life, I would have been an amazing student. If I would have actually been connected with myself, if someone would have given me that opportunity, but I got it and then I took it. So that's good.
How about other Latina or Latinx or Latino writers that you've been influenced by, or other writers as well, but other writers who have influenced you?
Marguerite Duras, Jeanette Winterson, June Jordan, Ana Castillo, for sure. Ana, So Far From God, just like changed my life as well, that style of writing. There's so many books. Cristina Peri Rossi, Ivo E, Carla Trujillo, Alicia Gaspar de Alba, Dr. Jackie Cuevas, Emma Perez, Emi Perez, Michelle Otero, Erasmo Guerra. I could go for days. I mean, there's some good writers out there. Those are major influences. I mean, if I had to pick the influences, I would say Elena Viramontes, Ana Castillo, Sandra Cisneros, Naomi Nye, Jeanette Winterson. Yeah, I'm in love with Jeanette Winterson and Cristina Peri Rossi. Those are like top sevens, you know? Cristina Peri Rossi, that her collection, Ivo E, have you read that? Oh my goodness. Everybody, all of you read it. Absolute influence on all my writing.
Will you talk to us about how you identify?
I identify as a Latina, Chicana, Mexicana, lesbiana, bucha, butch, queer person. I don't believe that I need to be one or the other, or only one, or only two, or only three. I could be five, or I could be anything. I definitely never shy from saying that I am a Chicana with the X, that I am a lesbiana, and that I'm absolutely queer and have Mexican parents. All the things, all the identities. I'm there.
Okay, so speaking of parents and family, you've mentioned family, and you've talked about how your novel addresses some of your family history, right? And it may be fictionalized, but how do you grapple with questions around writing about things that might connect to family stories that other people know, or about, sharing your writing with your family? What is that like for you?
It's definitely tough. I stick to some lessons that I picked up from different teachers. Every single thing I write, I think some little voice comes in and it's like, when your mom reads that, they're going to think it's them. Or when your tia reads that, they're going to think it's them. I actually had a tío call my mom when Empanada came out, said years after it came out, I finally read Anel's book and I think this thing's about me. And he was really upset, and I'm like, and she said, which I love my mother for this, she told him, well, if you think it's about you, it probably is. And if you're embarrassed, that's probably your fault. She told him that, which that felt great. My poor mom has gotten the grunt of all of so much. She had to hear and read about so many things that we went through. So to me, she's the strongest in the whole equation. My mother has been the strongest person in the whole equation, stronger than myself, to be able to really relive all the traumas that we had to live together, and I've got on the other side of, thank God. When I write these things, yeah, they come up, but my practice is like, okay, go away. If you read it, you read it. If you feel bad, you feel bad. That's not my problem. I'm not keeping it in my body anymore. I'm not keeping it in my body. And so, I remember that if I can get it out, it can leave. It can go have its own little world and grow its own little, family somewhere else, those feelings. So I definitely just try to practice telling myself, it's okay. You will be fine and they will be fine. We will all be better, now that you've released some of this truth. If you're out there and you want to be a writer or you want to be an artist, then you have already achieved the most important step. And that is telling yourself you want to be a writer or an artist, and continuing to say that you are a writer or you are an artist. I would tell anyone who wants to be that to just say that you are, to immediately start saying, I am a writer, I am a storyteller, I am an artist, and take that, own that, love that, know it is a responsibility, and work really hard. It is a commitment. You have to make a commitment. So one, make a commitment to try to write every day. Jackie and I said to each other once many years ago, I said, how did you write? And then Jackie said, oh, I wrote a word. And then I was like, well, we both were like, well, it's one word more than you wrote the day before that. So that's good. Well, also don't be hard on yourself. If you're a writer and artist and you skip a week of writing or you skip a week of art, instead of going down that dark road of like, oh my God, I didn't do anything, just, okay, well, you know what? Today is a new day. I'm going to start. I'm going to write that one word down. So do it, work hard, connect with your community, be part of your community, share your stories, and know that every single story is different, and everybody everybody has a unique experience, and every unique experience is something to share. In 2020, I received the Catalyst for Change Award from NALAC and the Cerdna Foundation. With that award, I was challenged to do anything I wanted. They just said, this is an award because you've been doing the work of social justice in writing and in your art. So I took that award and I made a dream come true. I've been dreaming for so long to have a residency, and you know that, Jackie, that I'm always like, let's make up a residency, or come on, let's meet at the beach for a week, or let's go. I'm always trying to get in residence with brown and Black queer folks, always, because it's so hard. So with this award, I was like, I'm doing it. I have some cash. I'm going to start a residency, and it's going to live beyond my lifetime. So what I did was I learned about Gloria Anzaldua's taller that she did in 1995 called Taller Nepantla, and she did this in California with an award that she received. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do what she did. She invited a small group of, I think she had 5 artists, but I have 7 total, including myself. We're doing a 1-month residency in Arroyo City, which is down by the Laguna Madre, the Gulf of Mexico. So we're freezing over here right now. We're doing a February residency, and the La Otra Taller Nepantla is what it's called. And La Otra Taller Nepantla will be LGBTQIA, brown and Black POC folks. We will be meeting biannually. This is our first year in 2021, but our next one will be in 2023. In between years, on the even years, we will have our event from the previous residency. So, for example, this 2021 residency will be right now 1 month of artists and writers and poets all coming together to work in a space that is safe, that is open to create. Then in next year, in the same time in February, we'll have an event celebrating the work that we created during this month. And then the following year, we'll have another residency. So every other year, look for La Otra Taller Nepantla on my website, and you'll be able to learn more about opportunities to be part of it, to support it, to financially support it, or emotionally, or somehow, or even attend possibly. So that's my newest project that I'm so excited about, and it'll be my life's work, La Otra Taller Nepantla. So thank you. Prior to the residency and prior to even having it this month, I did make sure that every single resident, we were very careful. We all isolated prior to coming. We all tested prior to coming. We all drove here on our own. We all arrived, and we're all sitting still, and we're not going anywhere. So we're all very safe during this time in COVID. Piece is called I Like for You to Be Barefoot. It was inspired by Pablo Neruda. I like for you to be still. I don't love poetry. I've never loved poetry for many years. I kind of was jaded about it. Didn't want to write it, didn't want to read it. And then I fell in love. So that happens. And I learned to love. So I wrote this poem called I like for you to be barefoot. Me gusta que estás descalza. This poem will be featured in an anthology, actually, and the anthology is called In Xochitl in Cuautl, co-edited by Juan Velasco at Santa Clara University, and also Armando Migueles at the University Miguel Hernández in Spain, and also Gabriela Gutierrez Mu, who's also from the Seattle University. They're going to be editing an anthology that will be coming out in May of this year. So this poem will be in that collection of poetry, and it is titled, I like for you to be barefoot. I like for you to be barefoot. It is as though you are home, but your home is far away, like La Esposa, who waits at the other end of El Chalan for her son, who said he would return children, who used to come over from Los Ébanos when it was only 2 centavos and they didn't need a passport. But your home is far away from Texas, like the word maguey in English. I like for you to be barefoot. It is as if you are playing canicas with your primos on the Caliche path, but your feet are soft like the antique color postcard of your memories, running along El Rio Bravo, up and down the trees, when being afraid to fall wasn't an option. But your feet are soft and cramped in shoes like a pájaro sin nubes. Let me invite your bare feet onto the rim of my brother's bicicleta. Let's swerve through the streets, jump a curb, swing into Alamo candy on Blanco, watching your hips bounce as you cringe from cold and laugh at the rainwater splashing you. Mi tejana, Rio Bravo. You are beautiful without shoes. I like for you to be barefoot, one dusty ankle, one dry bloody scab on the edge of your toe you didn't notice you ripped on the bark of the mesquite. You climbed up and slid down because you were laughing and bright and open and fragrant as the sky. I like for you to be barefoot. Thank you.